We're reading this paper called The Ontology and Aesthetics of Genre by Evan Malone, or maybe Emmy Malone, I'm not sure. And this was in the Philosophy Compass. As always, feel free to ask me questions along the way. It's my first time reading it. And because I've been suspended on YouTube and Twitch, this is for educational purposes. I am not endorsing what I am reading here. I am only reading it to see if it's any good. A streamer is valid, acknowledge my heart. Well, dude, streaming ain't easy. I try to do it as best as I can. People have been telling me I should do like rage content. I'm like, no, I just want to do my thing and like chill, you know? So I do what I can. That's always my position. It's been my position for a long time. I do what I can, and if it's good, then yeah, like I hope other people like it. Rage is like, no, I'm not doing like, they wanted me to react to like, popular stuff. Like, you know what you're talking about. You could like react really well. I was like, no. Sponsored by, yeah. Yeah, I mean, believe me, if someone wanted to pay me for the bullshit I was doing, I was talking about this earlier. If someone please would like give me money to do what I want, just do whatever I want. Like, yeah. I mean, granted, like there's probably people I wouldn't take money from, but I mean, I just can't see them giving me money anyway. So I was like, who would want to give me money? But anyway, let's start reading this paper. We had only gotten to the first sentence when we got that nice raid from Ivan. Thank you, Ivan. So here we go. Genres inform our appreciative practices. And I don't know what an appreciative practice is, and maybe we'll find out very quickly, but I just find it interesting that I already have tripped over the first sentence. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Ivan. What it takes for a work to be good work of comedy is different from what it takes to be a good work of horror, and failure to recognize this will lead to a failure to appreciate comedies or works of horror particularly well. Okay, so how do you appreciate different things? Like, so you can appreciate one thing for what makes it good versus another thing for what makes that other thing good. Viper says you should train an AI on your voice, make it read the paper, and just press pause when you want to comment to save my voice. That isn't the worst idea. Like, when I started streaming, I had to because this was years ago. This was before the current generation of voice technology. The ones back then weren't so good, but I said, in the future, it's going to get better than this. Am I okay with having enough data online that people would be able to train something on my voice? And I had to say, yeah, same with my face. Like, you've got all views of my face just by moving around. So you can basically get a full face model and voice model off me, just from all my streams, because I try to have pretty good, microphone discipline. I'm pretty good near the microphone, so the voice sounds okay. And same with the looking at the screen. Yeah. But maybe it would be useful just to do it for myself. Yeah. Well, what's it taste like, Brian? So I have to be able to sort it to appreciate it. That looks like that's already looking like where it's going, Chocolate. Oh, yeah, it would be. It's like AI read the suspicious papers, yeah, and have the AI just call bullshit on them too. Let's see. Funny you mentioned the linguist side, consciousness, yeah, blah blah. Okay, there's about the other discussion. There's a blonde math YouTuber that has an ASMR voice. It would be good to have the voice read, yeah. So. Again, do I want to really be an ASMR streamer? It's like, nah, it's not the goal here. I do appreciate having good sound quality. This mic has been really, really nice over the years, to tell you the truth. People have complimented how I sound. I've been using the same mic since I started streaming, which I bought years before in thinking that I might do something like this. So it's like, I just have to be happy with the mic. And that's all it really is. It's the microphone doing most of the work. Okay. So the whole point here is that we have to be able to appreciate things for what they are. Okay, yeah, it might seem Bordeauxian, K-Pars. We're literally one sentence into this, 2 sentences into this paper. We're gonna find out. Twitch is talk radio with interaction. Twitch is talk radio with gamification. The whole point of Twitch is to get chat to engage, which is more of a game reaction thing. It's not just interaction, it's gamification to get people to spend money. So that's what it is. Yeah. Stalling so hard. Well, I do try to engage with chat. Okay. Likewise, the author says, it is not uncommon to hear people say that film or novel is good work, but not a good work of X, where X is the genre of that work. Yeah, so you can be a good movie, but not really good at one of the things that you were trying to do. You could be And Latvian Jesus, I've had a lot of time to think about this. You could be like, you could make an overall good movie, but it may not be an overall good type of a certain kind of movie. Yeah, a work can be good, all things considered, but genre membership provides with an additional set of evaluative criteria over and above those of the medium, which colors how we interpret and appreciate the work. Yeah, so this is, we're going to be getting into the qua. This is the qua stuff. You may have a good movie, but it may not be a good movie qua like horror movies. So it may be a good overall movie, but it may be a shitty horror movie. If it was trying to be a horror movie. Like, what's it called? Snatch. The old gangster sort of comedy movie. It was trying to be a gangster movie, but it turned out to be more of an entertaining sort of comedy movie. So, like, qua gangster flick, it wasn't good, but was it a good movie overall? Yes, because I may be wrong about this. The movie Snatch, Guy Ritchie movie, it turned out to be a good movie, but it wasn't what he was setting out to make. And so it was like, what he was setting out to make, he didn't do a good job. He turned out to make a good movie overall, though. Some people should learn to appreciate some quality trolling. Well, if you've been into philosophy streams, you'll find out philosophers handle trolls a little differently. Let's see, philosophy friends. So like the first link on there is our buddy Aristotle. You go in there and try to troll. You'll see how you get handled very differently. And oh yeah, speaking of, we should give also Globus a shout out. Globus is here. The Globus. Globus is another stream buddy of ours. He does AI and talk and news chat quite often, daily, sometimes twice a day. But these are all the other philosophy stuff. And yeah, we do appreciate the trolls. Although I don't like boring trolls. You have to be good trolls. Okay. So given this importance, it is not surprising that philosophers of art have been interested in providing an account of what exactly a genre is. Despite this interest, there is not widespread agreement about what it takes for something to be a genre, nor what kind of considerations are relevant in determining whether a work is a member of that genre. But beyond this, we might also want to know to what degree we ought to consider genre in evaluating a work of art, and why it should matter at all. Here I explore the variety of recent theories that philosophers have taken up on the topic of genre, and why we should ultimately think of genres as artistic practices rather than alternatives. Yeah, because I mean, if I was going to just say what a genre, I'd be like, it's a category of movie. There's different like categories, like conventional categories that like, you know, it's a murder movie or it's a, you know, it's a romance movie or whatever. These are just categories. So it's going to be categories with extra steps. You think a good troll is actually just someone tastefully shitposting? That's fair too. I mean, there is a philosophy of memes talk going to happen, I think, on the 21st. So, like, there are people who are starting to analyze these things. Yeah, a murder mystery. That's what I meant. Sorry, Vipers. Yeah, a murder movie is no. Murder mystery, you know, like a whodunit or whatever. The first that came to mind was a snuff film. I meant murder mystery. No, I don't actually think of snuff. I did not think of snuff films. Yeah. Categories that make use of conventions to communicate ideas. Yeah. Memetics. Yeah. I don't have the link here. I have the link on my other computer, but I'll put it in. It's in for people who are in Aris's Discord. It's in the suggest a topic or channel. I can put it in my Discord too. Is there such a thing as a perfect murder? I mean, I have no idea. I mean, something we can all appreciate. Well, there's good murder movies, like murder mystery movies. But I mean, is there a perfect movie? Probably not. There's very good movies, of course. Excellent ones. Okay. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not, like, I like aesthetics, but this is not my area. Okay. Genres as features. While there are a number of theories of genre and differences between them can be subtle, accounts in the literature tend to fall into one of four kinds: genres as features, genres as functional kinds, genres as traditions, genre as practices. Yeah, so what I just said is functional kinds. That's what I said, like categories. That's a kind. Okay. The first of these, genres as features, regards a genre as a set of works picked out by a particular combination of features. Give me a fucking platonic form right now or you're a con. Exactly. It's a circle. Here's my philosophical example. See that? It's a circle. U.S. quarter. Okay, the features, so like genres feature, these features are typically thought of as internal to the work, such that we, as the audience members, could diagnose the genre of the work directly through engagement with the work and without needing much, if any, background knowledge. In some cases, genres as features accounts think that the characteristic set of features provides us with a definition such that the features and jointly necessarily insufficient. Yeah, definition, so they're necessary and sufficient. Your coin is a cylinder? No. It's a perfect circle. In other cases, these features might form the basis of a cluster concept where works only need some combination of the characteristic feature in order to count as works of that kind. Yeah, so what was I watching the other day? I was watching Eastern Promises. That's kind of a mystery. That's kind of a thriller. A little bit of action. It's like, yeah, I mean, you could say it's like I don't know what you'd call it. A lot of people, it's like a gangster movie, though. So it's like, it's got gangsters in it and they kill people. Is that a gangster movie? It's got the feature of gangsters that kill people. Gangster movie. Like, I guess that would be the feature, like having it. Okay. For instance, we might think film noir is the genre characterized by depictions of hard-boiled private investigators, beautiful double-crossing women, and dramatic use of lighting. A definitional version of genres as features tell us that satisfying all of these features is both necessary and sufficient for a work to be a member of the class film noir. Must be a Christmas movie. It was a Christmas movie. I think it was around Christmas. It was a New Year's movie, actually. New Year's was part of it, but it was a Christmas movie. Yeah. Then we can get into the is Die Hard a Christmas movie argument yet again. Okay. Meanwhile, a cluster model might tell us that a film is a work of film noir insofar as it satisfies at least some of these conditions, and further that the more of these conditions the film satisfies, the more film noir it is. Yet, despite these differences, definitional and cluster accounts of this kind have in common that they take it that providing an account of a particular genre is a matter of determining the characteristic features, and that diagnosing a work as a work of that genre is a matter of determining whether and to what degree the work has those features. So yeah, like, if it's a Christmas movie and has Christmas stuff in it, like Die Hard has some Christmas stuff in it, must be a Christmas movie. Does that make that a Christmas movie? I think most of the people I deal with say no. It has, its setting is during Christmas time, but it is not about Christmas themes for the most part, although it is kind of about family. But like, that's weekly, it's weak because there's other movies about family that aren't Christmas movies. So it is Christmas setting, but it's not Christmas movies specifically. So it'd be very weekly. Christmas. Okay. Did I just hear Hallmark? Yes. Importantly, the features which pick out a genre need not be internal to works of that kind in order for an account to be genres as features account. Take, for example, the musical genre bounce. Bounce is characterized by internal features, for example, the triggerman beat, call and response shouting, and whistling, but also by the external fact that the artists who produce bounce tracks are from New Orleans. This is then a mixed account because it draws on both internal and external features. Interesting. So if you're like, it's a location-based thing. Oh, and Trombone Shorty is coming by. If any of you guys have the opportunity to ever hear Trombone Shorty play, you should take it. Trombone Shorty's great, a New Orleans musician. Latvian says, I love how we memeingly said, when does someone become bald? And now the paper is asking, when does something become a noir? Like, once you start realizing that philosophy, like the different parts of philosophy, a lot of the same arguments come up here and there, like all over the place. It's really not, like, that's part of why I like rhetoric and like argumentation. You start seeing these things all over the place, and like, that is one of the coolest things. Brian says, right, I was mistaken when I said that your coin is a cylinder because it's actually a perfect circle. Thank you for correcting me. Is there anything else I can help you with? No, I mean, you know everything. I don't think, I mean, if you want to help me with stuff, it's like, yeah, but like, I'm just doing the best I can here. You actually know. So, I mean, I'm just scraping by. Okay. So mixed accounts may be attractive because they allow us to capture genres which we take to be spatially localized, as in the case for bounce music, or temporally localized, as might be the case for post-impressionist paintings. We could also have a genre as features account that is entirely based on external features, although most genres do not lend themselves to this kind of analysis. Yeah, so like, just because you're from New Orleans does not make you a New Orleans artist all the time. Like, they're usually, like, say you're painting in a completely different style. Would people say that you're a New Orleans artist if you are, like, not painting, but making music in a style that is not typically from New Orleans? That would be a little bit unfair. Or it would be weird. Like, say you were like a classical pianist, and then like, are you a New Orleans artist as a classical pianist? Probably not. Okay. There are several challenges which arise for genres as features accounts. For one thing, there is the open question which all hangs over all theories of genre. Can we actually provide satisfactory accounts of every individual genre in terms of the theory? As we will see, different theories seem especially well suited to capture a particular set of genres. Yeah, so it's like everyone's going to have like their wheelhouse where they work, and then at the edge, all the edge cases fail. That's usually what happens with these sorts of things. What's a continental philosopher? Who's continental? I'm continental sympathetic, but I'm mostly an analytic philosopher. I mean, I've now currently have 2 papers on paradoxes, like logical paradoxes. I would be hard pressed, although to be fair, I wrote on metaphysics and forms last. So a location-based feature genre, that's fair. Although you can be a continental philosopher and be from a different part of the world. It's just based on certain traditions within that come from the European continent. But we're going to get to the traditions account later, because they said that they're going to talk about traditions and not just the features. A location feature based. Okay. Analytic metaphysician. Yeah. Like I said, I am very, I'm a little promiscuous with my philosophy. I go all around. But like, yeah, I am mostly analytic, and I do metaphysics and logic and theory of knowledge. Okay. Beyond this, however, there is also the problem of genre drift. The features we associate with a given genre often change over time. We can imagine this happening to such a degree that the earliest and latest works in a particular genre share no common features at all, yet both are considered members of the same genre. Enrico Tironi offers the most promising answer to this question with his homeostatic property cluster account of genres. Here, the features which pick out a given genre are those that audiences expect from the works of that kind. Since audience expectations evolve over time, so do the features which count towards membership in that genre. However, there it does not get us closer to addressing another worry. Exactly. Genre of Theseus. So, like, you can start picking apart stuff, concentrated here, concentrated there. Okay, so here's another one. The problem of genre explosion. In this case, our concern is with ensuring that our view of what a genre is doesn't lead to an explosion of previously undiscovered genres. What the hell does that mean? Put another way, we need an account of genre which preserves the ability to distinguish between genres and mere categories of art. Yeah, see, this is what I was saying earlier. What's the difference between a category of art here? Like, I'm not entirely sure. Philosophy is the 80 words I read at the end of my essay to increase my word count. Well, good to know. And why avoid that? And why avoid what? The problem of explosion? Lean into it? I don't know if you want to lean into explosions. Sometimes I'm like, oh, what do I do? But it's like I'm avoiding other people in my area. Like, I like what I write. I do not like what other people write quite often. And that's why I write what I write, because I like my stuff. But it's like, do I want to be associated with some of the other people? Not always. If you don't lean into it, it'll knock you over. I will keep that in mind. Pyro is tempting me for a good time. Go for it. A little Pyrrhonian skepticism. There's a whole other level to this. If you read genre as gender, I had the same thought not that long ago. Like, I was wondering, because you said the author has interest in gender studies too, so it's like in the philosophy of gender. Maybe they're also thinking of like this shifting categories in terms of gender as well. I don't know. I mean, that's speculation, but based on their interest listed on their Phil Papers page, that it might be the case. It's the same word in French for the same in French for the 2 words. Well, there you go. Appreciate the linguistic insight. It may be that a set of common features is necessary for be a necessary component for a genre, but it is certainly not sufficient. There is a set of paintings which share in common that they use the colors dark sienna and Van Dyke brown, but this set doesn't constitute a genre any more than the set of songs featuring a glass harmonica and a tempo below 200 beats per minute, or the set of architectural works exactly 84 inches in height, or feet in height. Indeed, the buildings which make up the last category do all satisfy the expectations that audience would have for works of that kind, but they don't seem to compose a genre. Sock now says, well, a category of art can be abstract movements, realism, futurist, Dada, expressionist, Victorian period. Yeah, so it looks like the way this author is using this stuff is that genre is more specific than category. Categories can be a little bit more arbitrary or conventional, although the genre is somehow more focused. What's up, Retheus? How you been? Hope you're well. Is depending on movements of popularity and textual analysis. Well, that's part of what they said. It's our audience expectations. So that would be related to popularity. So yeah. You know, we're reading a paper on genres in art, and it's like, how do we, how do we see like what is a film noir? How do we understand what counts as a film noir? So it's kind of, trying to figure out some of the more specific categories in art, because like you have all these different categories, but how do we narrow this down? Yeah, it's kind of cool. Retheus. So far so good. I mean, this is just, at the moment, they haven't made any claims yet. They're just kind of giving the lay of the land. Yeah. Okay, accordingly, the genres at features account need to ensure that they have fully spelled out the conditions which distinguish categories of art from genres. Finally, there is the problem of genre appreciation, or that of why genre classification should be relevant at all in appreciating a work. Film noir is cynical? Yeah, well, I mean, again, we were just talking about the features. And so, like, a feature theory is, they said, of hard-boiled detectives. So it's like you're going to get these like hard-boiled detectives. It's going to be cynical. Sort of glorifying the long-term veteran who has seen it all. Yeah, exactly. But like that, if that's like the feature you're interested in, that's like a feature of the genre. And then we're going to move on. We've been talking about features up till now. And then like when we get down here, genres as functional kinds, we'll talk about something slightly different. But like that was one of their good examples for the feature-based theories of genre. Okay. Let's just get through this section. If genres are just works organized according to common features, then why should we care that, for instance, Scream is a horror film? A work having some features in common with another work doesn't seem to provide us with aesthetic reason to like it more or to evaluate it different. It is merely a passing fact about the work. If these features are important or relevant because the audience expects them, then why is it sometimes good and sometimes bad to satisfy the audience's expectations? Further work must be done on the genres as features account to explain the normative force that genres have over why we appreciate works. Yeah, so that's fair. If it's just features and it has it, it's like check boxes. Like check. Did it check all the boxes to be a noir? And it's like, well, yes, but that doesn't make it. Why is that good or bad that it hit the check boxes? Like you have to do it well, and that's what the normative thing is here. Yeah, well, thank Vipers, Retheus. Vipers found this one for us, so we appreciate Vipers' searchability. Sockner says, well, one way to know the film director's likes and desires of the filmography, acting this way, or more direct approach on the influence of the director. Yeah, so I think we'll get to other kinds of appreciations, but this was just the features here. Retheus says, aesthetics are hand in hand with story, though, when it comes to movies. Yeah, so, again, we're getting there. We're getting there. Genres as functional kinds. Genres as functional kinds argues that genre identity is determined by a particular functional role which works of that kind are supposed to play in our aesthetic practice. For instance, we might think that horror is the set of works which function to induce the feeling of art horror in audiences. Yeah, so again, what do you get from a noir movie? What do you get from a horror movie? So like, what's it doing to us? In the same way, suspense films should function to cause the feeling of suspense. These examples are helpful because they fit the general pattern of thinking about function in terms of a work's ability to bring about a particular phenomenological state. Retheus says, the author is hung up on aesthetics unless they mean it differently than I'm taking it. Well, the whole paper is aesthetics, so I don't know what you're about. Like, they're talking about aesthetics of genre, like how the different ways at the moment, they're talking about the different ways people analyze genres in general. So it's like, that's just what they're doing. Like, that's just what was going on right now. Okay. Genres named after emotions like this tend to lend themselves to functional accounts especially well, and as such are most common. Yet if the genre as functional kinds theory is true, we can give accounts like this for every genre. For instance, Noel Carroll has argued that documentary as film genre is picked out by its assertoric function, not by a particular phenomenological state. Yeah, so it's asserting something. I mean, assertoric is a very fancy way of saying it asserts something. The effects of the art. Yeah, exactly, K-Parse. Most functionalist accounts of genre are also intentionalist in an important way. If function was directly used to diagnose genre membership rather than intention, then fulfilling the function of that genre would be a necessary condition of being a work of that kind. This has two significant implications. First, it means that a work could be a work of a given genre on accident. It doesn't matter whether the artist was trying to get a particular reaction from the audience. If they did, then they have fulfilled the function and, as such, produced a work of that kind. So this is what I was saying about Snatch. I think Guy Ritchie was going for like a hard-boiled gangster movie, but it turned out to be more light comedy. So it turned out to be like a gangster comedy, and so it fulfilled the function of being funny or entertaining in a more lighthearted way. And so, like, they're saying, well, that was the function, and it became that. Snatch was fantastic, but I think Guy Ritchie knows he writes comedy very well and leaned into it. See, I may be wrong about this, and you may be 100% right, but I had heard that he was trying not to make a funny movie. He was trying to make a serious one, and then it became funny. So, yeah. MSTK 3K stuff, yeah. Viper says, I disagree. Snatch was always meant to be funny. Okay. I mean, I could be wrong. As an example, it still works as an example, even if it wasn't historically accurate. Rethia says, everything he does is brutal, but lighthearted to a weird degree. Yeah, I mean, that is kind of... He does that well. So he does like sort of brutality with like not making it seem so brutal all the time. Yeah, because a lot of people die in Snatch. But yeah. Okay. The second implication is that regardless of the artist's intentions, if they fail to make a work which fulfills the characteristic function, then they fail to make a work of that kind. Yeah, so if he was trying to make a hard-boiled gangster movie and it turned out to be lighthearted, then he failed. If that wasn't actually his intention, then like it doesn't matter. Okay, by contrast, if genre membership is instead a matter of the artist intending the work to have that function, then we have a built-in appreciative plan for works of that kind. Yeah. It is like the scene in Pulp Fiction when John Travolta accidentally blows the informant's head off in the car, but it's kind of funny. Yeah, Guy Ritchie shit. Yeah, that's fair. It's like, it was like, I didn't mean to shoot him in the face. Why'd you do that? What kind of the movie is Usual Suspects? I think that's a sort of a suspense thriller. Yeah. With a little bit of mystery thrown in. For example, a work of horror is one intended by the artist to induce art horror, and a work that is good qua horror is one that succeeds in inducing art horror to some significant degree. This is part of the appeal of genres as functional kinds accounts. Not only does the theory tell us how the work gets counted as a work of the kind, but also tells us what success conditions are for works of that kind. Thus, the view goes a long way in addressing the problem of genre appreciation. Notice, however, that this means that works can't be works of a given genre on accident. Membership is fixed by intention, so a scary film that is not a horror film unless the filmmaker intended it to be a scary work. I would love to hear the author of this paper talk about Terrifier. I don't know what Terrifier is, but yeah. Maybe Malone? Yeah, Malone can do that. Despite its attractions, the genres as functional kinds view also runs into a number of problems. First, there are the issues with the account's intentionalism. Some works are unintentionally funny or unintentionally scary, and the degree to which we might want to count these as instances of comedy or horror will matter whether the theory's intentionalism is a problem. However, the intention to produce a work with the characteristic function is rather minimal in terms of the relevant intentions. Latvian says, I don't know about that. I don't put too much weight into an author's intention, what they made, what has been made. It's there for you to interpret. Yeah, so, I mean, that's what the author is now talking about. Like, is this really worth building into your theory as something fundamental? Maybe that isn't what we want to do. Okay, yeah, so we can call this view soft intentionalism. Maybe it doesn't matter as much. By contrast, we could hold a stronger view as well. For instance, the inclusion in the genre might involve intending the work to fulfill the characteristic function, but also intending that the work is counted as a work of that kind. To be clear, the second condition can be added to a genre as feature account as well, but it fits quite naturally into the already intentionalist genre as functionalist kind account. The problems which arise for hard intentionalists are more numerous than those facing soft intentionalists. The soft version was what? It's just minimal in terms of the relevant intentions. Okay. It's just you have to get some little bit there. Retheus says, I think this off a bit off more than they can chew. Oh, they bit off more than they can chew, but like you respect it. Yeah, again, they are at the moment trying to get the lay of the land. I'm not entirely sure where we're going with this paper, but like at the moment they're just sort of, you're right, they're hand waving at different ideas. They're not going in depth. So it's like, okay, but they also haven't made any strong claims yet. This may be just sort of a survey at this point. And is that okay? You point out it may not be great, but then again, is it that bad either? Probably not. Because they're not making they're not like trying to do anything knockdown at the moment. Okay. It's just a tough topic when designed subjectively and interpreted subjectively. Yeah. Is there a platonic self, a sort of archetype? I'm not a Platonist, so I'd say no. Hard to come at that with logic, but it's bold. Yeah. Well, like I said, we don't quite know where they're going yet. So we're going to find out what they do with this. If you give like a survey and then you can make some like nice statements about the way things are in the discussion, then you can get yourself like a reasonable conclusion. If you do a survey and then you try to like do some like crazy knockdown arguments, like your survey is not like thorough enough at the moment to make these very strong claims. But we don't know where they're going at the moment. Okay. The problems which arise for hard intentionalists are more numerous than those facing soft intentionalists. For instance, a Robinson Crusoe-like character who spends their time on a desert island writing stories intended to induce fear would not count as a horror author if they did so without the awareness that works which fulfill this function constitute the kind horror. Yeah, so if they didn't know they were writing horror, how do you actually write horror? This is despite the fact that they endeavored to produce a work which fulfilled the characteristic function and succeeded in doing so. Likewise, it is unclear in practice whether the first work of a given genre would count as a member of that kind. Yeah, so if you invent a genre, how do you intend it to be that genre? While artists sometimes produce works with the intention to create a new genre, they often don't realize that similar works will later be brought together in order to constitute a kind. When Margaret Cavendish wrote The Blazing World, it is very unlikely that she intended the work to count as science fiction, even if she intended it to perform the function we now ascribe to works of science fiction. Accordingly, hard intentionalist theories of genre face the problem of genre invention, that is, the question of how such a theory can capture the emergence of a new genre. Yeah, exactly, K-Pars. So, this is like a weird problem. Like, how does the first thing make a genre? But like in philosophy, this matters. Like if you got everything right except for like one critical thing and you're just like, well, ignore that. You can't really say you've got like a full theory. You're like, well, just ignore this one thing where everything falls apart. So the author has like, you may like this, but it doesn't work in terms of like a full philosophy. Okay. Beyond concerns about intentionalism, the genres as functional kinds view also faces the problem of genre explosion. Willie Nelson released the album The IRS Tapes Who'll Buy My Memories with the intention that the work would raise enough money for him to pay off his back taxes. Meanwhile, since Lady Gaga has produced an album with the intention that the album functions to give her an opportunity to work with Tony Bennett, is there a genre of works which serve the functional role of giving the artist the opportunity to work with another artist, and perhaps a subgenre of works focused on Tony Bennett in particular? Brian asks, the full philosophy has contradictions like type equals type. Yeah, I mean, depends how like metaphysics you want to get. Like, if you want to go full Hegelian, like, yes, you're going to get yourself into contradictions all the time. Baddest Move by Willie Nelson. I hope it paid off his back taxes. Yeah, I don't know if it did. Are there genres of philosophy papers? Absolutely, Vipers. I mean, I can go into them. If it's only able to be ascertained in retrospect after it's already come and passed, like the way we made category medieval. Yes. And well, that's the problem with this. If you can only really understand things in hindsight, then this theory doesn't really work. Hope we can get some stuff nailed down by the end of this paper. Yeah, I hope so too, Anti-Snowman. But like, yeah, like genres of philosophy paper. I mean, in philosophy, of course, there's ethics papers, metaphysics papers, and things like that. But also, like, sometimes we read papers here and we're like, this was written by a grad student. This is a grad student paper because it's just sort of very formulaic and you can just feel it. They're, it's like you lay out the basic terms. You don't do anything like too crazy. You discuss a few big topics and you make a modest claim at the end. It's like, good job. This was like the first chapter of your dissertation. So that happens. So there's like definitely things you can pick out if you've read enough philosophy papers. Okay. And then there's also just terrible papers too. But like, yeah. Maybe more specifically there's papers that identify new phenomena, and then there's papers that make arguments. They take known stuff and then they put it together in interesting ways with arguments. And then there's also papers that like identify new things and they say, hey, take a look at this. This is like important philosophically. And you could say those are two very different kinds of philosophy papers. Retheus, it's interesting that the author was talking about how the works impact the audience early, and now it's about the intention of creating them. Yeah, that was these are two different ideas that they're going over at this point. Yeah, they're very methodological, not rigorous. Yeah, so it's like, but I mean, you'll see that anyway. I'm sure there's like student films. If you're into film, like you'll be like student film, like you'll notice it immediately. But then you'll be like, okay, this is beyond student film. What's it called? Like there's like, B horror movies. I remember they were talking to the cast of Alien, and what's his name? Scarrett. Scarrett, yeah. He was saying, we all were happy to be there. We were young. We were just like, oh, cool. We're working on like a B horror movie. And like, we just were happy to be there, like working as actors. And Tom Scarrett was like, yeah. And then the alien shows up and we realized whatever it was not a B horror movie anymore. And he said like the whole set changed. Everyone on the set understood they weren't making a B horror movie. So it's like things like that. Yeah, Tom Scarrett. Which I thought was a pretty interesting thing to say. Like everyone immediately knew, like whatever they thought they were doing, they were no longer doing it. I goddamn love Alien. Like, and the older I get, the more I love it. I liked it when I was younger, and I love it now. Okay, so do works of this kind constitute a genre, like making something with Tony Bennett? Likewise, how do we make sense of dance music? This is a functional kind of music, but it cross-cuts a variety of genres: zydeco, EDM, disco, etc. Country artists often write songs with the intention that they be used for waltzing, line dancing, or two-stepping. Other songs are not intended to be danced to at all. Yet while these works are all made with different functional intentions, they are all works of country music. This is all to say that we need a story about which functional intentions represent genres, because not all do, and why only those have a corresponding genre. Geiger go burr, yeah, exactly. Is it Giger or Geiger? I don't know. Viper says, I can't let mention of Alien pass without quoting Ridley Scott. Quote, she refused to pull up her panties and shave at all. We had to pay someone in 1979 something like $5,000 to airbrush out all her mange hair on every single cell of film. It took weeks. Yes, that is a great quote. Yeah, so Sigourney Weaver refused to shave for the movie when she was in a very small underwear. So yeah. This is kind of funny. Okay, so genres as traditions. So now we're moving on to the third way of defining a genre. According to the genre as traditions view, genres are traditions of artistic production where artists reference previous works in that tradition and thereby link them together. Apparently they're putting it back with AI for the new release. That's lovely. So we get to see the original, the OG Sigourney Weaver. Excellent. And Retheus is good on her for turning it around by not shaving and playing the reverse Uno card, which is uncomfortable. Lol. Yeah. I mean, I was saying this to my buddy. I was like, I love Sigourney Weaver in all of her movies. Like, she's just a great actor. I mean, I'm watching like, I needed to take some time off from streaming. And like, when I'm taking time off from streaming, I'm watching like cheesy Arnold movies. Like, I'm watching Alien movies. I'm watching Ghostbusters. And I'm watching like, The Running Man, Total Recall, things like that. So it's like, yeah, I've been watching that shit on loop. Like, I've seen Ghostbusters 2 more times in the last few weeks than I have in years. Okay. Okay, for example, a filmmaker may include a theremin in the score or a feature of a malevolent robot character as an homage to previous works of science fiction, and later sci-fi films will reference this film in other ways. This scheme of reference ties all of these films together in the sci-fi tradition. You rewatched Total Recall. Hey, Frank. It has so much good in it. Yeah, I love that movie. It's a great movie. Viper says, deleted scene of a xenomorph picking Ming's hair out of its... God damn it, Vipers. You've been on YouTube binge watching? Yeah, good times. Yeah, the original Total Recall is great. RoboCop is god tier. Things like that. These references are then taken up by audience who, in turn, appreciate this new work in the context and tradition established by the previous entries into the genre. On first pass, we might think that whatever these references are, they are just internal features characteristic of the genre, and as such, this is just a form of genre as feature account. However, one work might reference another in one way, which is referenced by two others in two other ways. All of the works which make up the tradition need not reference the same features. This allows different threads to emerge in which subgenres continuously reference from a particular set of features which are distinct from the set that picks out another subgenre. Despite this, these two traditions can trace themselves back to a common ancestor and are ultimately part of a common tradition. Imagine being a guy who creates entertaining deleted scenes for movies that didn't have any. Is that like a thing? That would be cool. Like, you know, like alternate realities, like alternate scenes. Like that would be fun. That'd be fun. I mean, it'd be a lot of work, but like it'd be fun. I mean, what was it? There's people who make comics and like, you know, I mean, that's just fanfic really. That's what it is. So, I mean, that's a lot of fanfic. Is there better philosophy? Yes. I mean, of course, Brian. There's also worse. We've read much worse things than this on Philosophy Roulette. As you saw, this is number 572. We've read terrible philosophy here on Philosophy Roulette. This is not terrible philosophy. Like, we've had stuff where we really couldn't get off the first page without just being, this is terrible. Yeah. And then you're saying, is there a better philosophy? I don't know if there is a single one, but like in general, there are better and worse philosophy. Yeah, chocolate. Exactly. Someone cited Internet 2015 because like they got something on Wikipedia and they just cited it as Internet. Like, really? Like, and they were trying to write philosophy. I was like, that's not good. How can we recognize that's good? That's not so easy. I mean, I've got a lot of experience reading stuff. I mean, like I say, 572 live on stream. And there's people here who have been here for a lot of my readings, and they can tell you that there are differences. Oh, by the way, you get to rate, how can you recognize that as good? Guess what you get to do at the end of stream? You get to rate the philosophy paper, and then we have a rating system that you will be able to look at on a webpage, and you can tell what we call good and bad philosophy. So that's what it is. Exactly. So you get to vote yay and nay on this stuff. Yeah, there's off the cuff bad. It is crazy. Yeah. So that's how you can tell what Twitch chat and I think is because we have a rating system. It's not fully functional yet, but it is up on the website and you will be able to see it. Let me see if I can just grab it actually. Aha, here it is. So if you want to take a look, like you can see these are what, these aren't even the final ratings. I have to, balance, I think. I have to rebalance some of the, amounts because it's based off emotes. But like, yeah, good philosophies make you look good. Good philosophy looks excellent on everyone. So yeah, well, like you can see that has links and all the stuff, and you can see what people have voted on. Okay, so we're talking about how traditions all like lead back to like earlier stuff, and then they break off into like different strands. Okay. The difference between Ev9's Genres Traditions account and Tironi's HPC Genre as Features account are subtle and mostly concern the question of whether genres are a history or simply have one. Okay, so if there's one like feature and thing or it's like a history. However, one issue which arises in an especially strong way for the Genres Traditions account, but which is likely present for all the theories we have discussed, is the privilege it gives artists in shaping genres. Consider the case of the music genre chillwave. Chillwave is widely regarded as having been invented by the music critic Carls on his blog Hipster Runoff in 2009. Chocolate says, I wonder how ratings distort consumer behavior. Maybe it restricts their experiences to higher ratings. There's actually a lot of research in this. And this not even its final form. Yeah. Any rating system is going to inherently make it look like the things at the top are much better than the things below them. That's not often true. Like, it may be that everything like the top 10 is of equal quality, but just because it's at the number 1, people think the number 1 is much better than 10. That's often not true. There's economic and behavioral economics talks about this a bunch. Rating systems are wildly terrible. And Vipers has criticized my rating system roundly, and rightly so, but like that's kind of the point, is that like this is just what it is. So it's like, I'm doing it anyway. I know there's problems, but like I want to give the rating system because that's what people like. This is what you mean by it means by biting off more than you can chew. This is such a huge question. I don't think they can land this without being subjective, but I'm interested in to see where it goes. Yeah, anti-snowman, exactly. And then you've got ratings, inflation. Everything is like 9 out of 10. Everything's like, if it's like 5 out of 10, it must be terrible, which really a 5 out of 10 should be average. So it's like, yeah. So these are how these things go. Yeah, so somebody invented a music genre in 2009. Yeah. Viper's Grep says, because what Viper does, your rating system is 8.5 out of 10. Oh, thank you, Frank. I appreciate that. Viper's is quite often right. So I wouldn't just discount his griping, because he is often right about the griping. So just because he's griping doesn't mean he's wrong. The genre is said not to have existed at the time that Carls coined the term. However, in describing the genre and initially using the term, Carls described band songs and albums that already existed. If people are right to think that Carls invented the genre, then many of the theories we have already discussed fail to capture that. For instance, the set of works containing those features was already occupied those same works Carls noticed, yet he merely discovered the genre rather than inventing it. Rethia says, Viper's one of the coolest, but he's probably hated reading that. Rating system goes to 11. This one is better. Yeah, of course. He's the real one. Yeah, he is. Okay. Yet the problem is different as it arises for genres as traditions. Early chillwave artists were not aware of one another when they were making the works that Carls described, and those works don't reference one another. As Alan Palomo of the chillwave band Neon Indian points out, being called chillwave is akin to waking up one day to read in the papers that you are related to the Baldwins. You begin to be asked several questions like, do you have any interesting stories from when Stephen was shooting Biodome? Only to respond, I've never met him. Whatever is the case about Neon Indian and chillwave, the artists of the genre do not see themselves as in a common tradition of artistic production. Instead, it was fans like Carls who brought the disparate works together and made a genre out of them. Yet by placing genre membership in the hands of artists who intentionally fix the target of their references, there is no room for fans or critics to do this. By contrast, a good theory of genre will allow for artists and fans to elevate mere categories of art to the status of genres. This discussion leaves us with a few conclusions which can shape future theorizing. Beyond at least roughly capturing all and only those things we think are a genre, a good account will also avoid the problem of genre explosion and the problem of genre invention. Rithia says genres aren't established, they emerge. Well, yeah, that's what's under question here. Exactly how? Like, how does that happen? In the case of the problem of genre explosion, this means being able to distinguish genres from mere categories of art. The difference between these two is genres are social in an important way. Yeah, so there is something social about it's not like you can just make up stuff, and it's like they emerge as a social thing. I think that's probably what you're getting at, Rethius, too. Is that there is something that there's groups of people and they show up. They just aren't invented by someone immediately on the spot. Rithia says it becomes the year 2011. Everybody loves the drop in dubstep, and then that's a thing. Is definitely social and has to catch like a fire. Yeah. So the question is, how do we define this sort of thing that happened? Okay, continuing. The reason that we are disinclined to account the mere categories of art that I've described as genres is that when we look around at the world, we find no evidence of them shaping or affecting anyone's aesthetic practices. Latvian says, genres and art are two distinct things. When you're making art, and then that art gets gendered after the fact by interpretive of the art. Well, that is what the question is. Is it only that way, or is it something else going on too? I mean, you can be making the art, and then there's sort of outsider art. There's like folk art where you don't even think you might be making art, but like then you are making art at some other time. So it gets a little bit murky. K-Par says, actually, dubstep came out of acetate dub plates mixed, and then two-step beat that came out of house in the UK coming together. Thank you for the history lesson. It says the word genre implies multiple arts in the same-ish style, though, right? It's basically popularity. Well, yes, but this author is trying to narrow down or analyze it a bit better to give us a better idea than, because that's not going to be helpful enough to, talk about. Because they want to be able to say, well, what's a good example of like a film noir? And if it's just same-ish of style, that's not good for critical analysis. If you want to be able to say like that's a good film noir or a bad film noir, what are you saying there? So it's not just popularity, because they made the point earlier on that you could have a good movie but it was a bad film noir. So it's like, well, they were trying to make a film noir and it didn't do a good job, but it turned out to be a good movie anyway. It's like, yeah. So it's not just popularity. And they made that point. It's not my point. So yeah. All right, the reason that we're disinclined to count the mere categories that art described as genre is that when we look around, we find no evidence. So I read this right. Indeed, the test we would use to tell whether something that is a genre on one account actually is a genre is that we would look for signs of life, venues, fans, community, festivals, awards, attributions, debates, etc. Genres have these features. They matter to communities, and communities identify with them. No one identifies as a fan of films depicting snails or as a member of the community of Don reference enthusiasts. Is The Dark Knight a film noir? I don't know. I don't think it's like, is it such a murder mystery? I don't think so. It's sort of set in a noir landscape, but I wouldn't call it a film noir. Yeah, Rithia says noir elements, but I'd say the newest Batman movie is the most noir film you've seen from Batman. So it's interesting how genres are scaled like that. Yeah, shots fired at snail movie fans. I know. Snail movie fans are hurting here. Sloths, though? Yes, sloth movie fans, too. Okay. However, people do identify metalheads, punks, sci-fi fans, or goths. This is to say that avoiding the problem of genre explosion means having a theory of genre that is social in an important way, though what that means is open to interpretation. With regards to the problem of genre invention, we know that a good theory will capture the variety of ways in which genres are invented. Of course, artists sometimes do set out to make works of a radically new kind, but genres also emerge when critics or fans bring together works and begin to curate them as a kind. As such, we now know that a good theory of genre will capture the role of fans and critics. My contention is that all of these conditions can be satisfied by thinking of genre as practices. Okay, so right here, they got really preachy because they're getting into what they want to say. And this was not like good argumentation. They just got preachy down here. It's like, well, they're just saying, we have to take all of these other ideas and bring them together. And that's what I'm going to say. That's fine. This was not a good argument over here, but like, it's fine. They're saying, I'm going to take everything that was good about all these other theories and then make genres as practices. It's okay. But I mean, I'm just like, I don't love the argumentation. Yeah. So, and Latvian Jesus is excited for this. Okay. Here we go. All right, rather than thinking about genres as sets of works, we should instead think of them as communities of art-centered practice. Following Rawls' model of social practices, the genres as practices account views genres as, quote, forms of activity specified by a system of rules which defines officers' roles, moves, penalties, defenses, and so on, which gives the activity its structure, end quote. If these activities are aesthetic in nature, then we are characterizing an aesthetic practice. Rawls mentions baseball and criminal justice as examples of practices. Both of these practices feature a number of different kinds of officers who are licensed to perform a variety of moves. These officers and moves are defined and constrained by a system of rules. So now we've got snail movies. Yes, prominent roles like Turbo 2013. Genre police. Yeah, that's also what's going on. We're gatekeeping a little bit here, but I mean, you have to gatekeep a little bit if you want to say anything. You have to be able to say, this counts as something and that's not it, you know? In baseball, there can only be can only be one batter at a time. Who that batter is defined by the rules, and what they are allowed to do in their capacity as batter is constrained by the rules. The same is true of pitchers, base runners, fielders, and umpires. The Rawls tidbit, yeah, I don't know enough Rawls because I never did Rawls, but this all, like, at least is a sensical theory so far. Further, the valence that certain moves take on emerges from the rules of that practice. For instance, hitting a home run is valuable in that practice in a way that is not outside of that practice. If just hitting a ball far doesn't count for anything outside of a baseball game. Like, you can hit the ball far, but then you just have to go get your ball. Like, you might like it, but it counts for something very specific in baseball. Its value is defined in reference to it. Likewise, in criminal justice, holding a particular office for a judge, lawyer, plaintiff, etc., licenses you to contribute to the practice in certain prescribed ways, for example, issuing and granting appeals, handing down sentences, filing suits, etc. And assuming you act within the procedures of that practice, all parties recognize those moves as having a kind of normative force that they wouldn't if they weren't undertaken by other officers or by those outside of the practice. In much the same way, genres are like games that fans and artists play with works of art, taking on Rawls' use of games as a paradigmatic practice. In this case, genres are art-centered aesthetic practices, participation in which picks out the community of that genre. Latvian says, could have just started with I like Rawls, and I'm going to build on this, laughing Latvian's ass off. Yes. But I mean, again, this paper, this is in the Philosophy Compass. I think this paper, this journal, what they do is like you're supposed to be introducing a topic to a general audience. So part of the structure of the genre of the paper is to give a lot of introductory material so that people might be introduced to a topic that they wouldn't normally have discussed or know anything about. So in some sense, yeah, if they may have written this for a different venue, then they might have, or for whatever reason, they wrote it in this way to introduce the topic. So this may be, so they participate in the genre of intro paper. Exactly, K-Pars, that's what I'm saying. But like, again, this is how you write philosophy papers. And they could have written it a different way. They could have been like, I'm going to write a Rawlsian theory of genre. And that would have been perfectly acceptable too. Rethia says the author should have weighed in with former Blockbuster employees tasked to organize the 2002 movie in store. Yeah. That too. They could have also done that. Okay. And you have to also consider sport as a kind of aesthetic practice. Like, we do treat sport kind of like an art also, in general. It's kind of like theater. So, like, a lot of people watching. So, this is not that far off. Okay. Looking at genre membership, a work is a work of a genre if regarding it as a work of that genre constitutes a legitimate move according to that practice. I mean, the problem here is what counts as painting? What is a legitimate move in painting? It's going to be hard to what counts as legitimate or illegitimate work in painting. There's certain things at certain times were not legitimate works in painting. Say you have like the drip paintings by, I can't remember names anymore, but like drip paintings where he was dripping ink, paint over it all the way to the edge of the painting. No one had gone off the edge of a painting before. That was not the legitimate practice at the time. So by dripping the Pollock, thank you, Jackson Pollock, appreciate that, Globus and K-Pars. So if you're going to talk about what counts as painting, that was breaking the moves according to the practice of painting at the time. And it is just paint on the canvas. So, but it broke the edge of the canvas. So it's like, well, what counts? I'm not entirely sure that, like, this is going to have some problems too. It was also mechanical and random. Okay, so there may be other things that have gone wrong with it. They had little, and it had little intent besides method. Yes, so that was one of the things that happened was things became more about method than other stuff before. So, I mean, that's what a lot of the 20th century artists were doing. They were breaking the old practices. So, like, yeah, thank you for the... it's not just breaking the edge of the painting, but it was more than even that. So, yeah, that's right. It's also rooted in emotion, though. You need to be emotionally reactive to the breaking of the old practice. Agreed. But like, this is the interesting thing, and I hope the author is going to go into it, but like, what counts as a legitimate move according to the practice, that immediately makes me worried because of examples like Pollock. It's like, well, is Pollock not a painter? Pollock is most definitely a painter. So, okay. Veins and artists represent different offices, and these offices, along with others, are empowered to impact the practice in different ways. Beyond this, producers, critics, and venues also count as offices, which enable the office holder with the ability to perform a variety of particular moves. So yeah, it's determined by the practice. Yeah, and this is the issue, Latvian Jesus. Who gets to decide what counts as legitimate practice? They're saying, okay, all these other people are involved too, and maybe that's okay. It said that the valence of the art is determined by the practice it's participating in. Yeah. So this is why it's difficult, because now it's getting... We don't know exactly how all of this is like going to actually work. Maybe it starts outside and gets incorporated. We'll find out. Let's see what the author says. See what officers exist, what is necessary in order to be counted as an officer of that kind, and what moves are available to those officers will be defined by the practices of that genre in particular, in the same way that sports paradigmatic practices may differ wildly in structure. Yeah, but again, baseball has written rules. Painting does not have written rules. There is no like official rule book of painting. Yeah, the blob. It might be that venues or artists are more empowered in certain genres than in others. Likewise, what moves are valuable and or legitimate will depend on the particularities of that genre. It might be valuable to frighten the audience in horror but not in comedy. It might be valuable to scream in hardcore punk and not in ambient music. The project of providing an account of particular genre is, then, one of understanding what moves are legitimate and valuable, why they are valuable in the context of that practice, what offices exist and how they are defined, what norms govern evaluations and determinations within that community, and what functions those norms play for that practice. Rithia says, I think the key problem here is that I think I have no definition of what art is compared to what baseball is. Yeah, I mean... Well, I'm criticizing what the author is saying here in some sense, that there is any way to really identify officers or rules of certain genres. Like, it feels like they're going to be picking and choosing arbitrarily, just like you were picking and choosing what counts as a tradition or what counts as like relevant features, things like that. So, yeah. Herding cats, yes. Well, that's a lot of philosophy. Okay. But they referenced Rawls. They made a little bit of a hand-wavy thing at that. So, there is something to this, Latvian says, as baseball prospect, those written rules aren't so much valued by the fact that they're written. For example, it's explicitly outlawed to use performance-enhancing drugs. Doesn't mean you're not expected to be on juice by the time you're in sophomore year. Yes, but like... There is something like, did you step outside of the baseline? And I know that like where you run, like it's all like context dependent, but like there are definitely like, this is where the, like if the ball lands on one side of the line, it's out of bounds and it's a foul ball. And if it's on this side of the line, it is not a foul ball. It's in play. Like that's a hard and fast rule. Like it's just, that is the rule in baseball. If you're out of bounds or you're in bounds. And that's for a lot of sports. And that is defined in the rules. And if you are not playing according to that rule, you are not playing baseball. And if you draw paint outside of a line, well, what does that count as? Umpires make a lot of judgment calls. What's a strike zone is not a hot button these days. Exactly. But like, there's still rules about certain things, Yeah. Someone says there's unwritten rules of baseball too, like don't take too long on the home run trot or you're showing up the pitcher. Absolutely. And baseball is notorious for that stuff. But like I said, where the ball lands on the inside or the outside of the foul line, like that is a rule. There is no rule like that in like cubism. Yeah, do not draw a line on the ump. That's another good rule, Rethius. So even though there's a ton of like culture that goes into sports and a ton of culture that goes into art, maybe even more in art, I don't know. But like the fact that there is no written rules so some of them have to be followed pretty hard. Like if the ball lands on the outside line, it's out of bounds. There is no out of bounds in art. Or at least there's no, I mean, it's just very hard to say exactly what would count as a hard and fast rule in that sense. Like an umpire in art. One is a game as victory condition. Yes, victory conditions is a good point. Like when at the end of the 9th inning, if one team is ahead, they have won. That is victory conditions. Exactly right. So yeah. Like, and that would be a property. And so this would go back to the property of the property theory, I think. Okay. So let's see what the author says though. How are genres invented on this view? When Carl's invented chill wave, if he even did, according to chat. Yeah, so strategy versus no strategy is necessary in art, but there still could be strategies within certain areas. Like, wouldn't want to say there is no strategy at all. I'm just saying that, like, especially with the stuff that isn't written rules, there may be strategies within different sort of art communities or whatever. But, yeah, but like when it's not written down. What do you mean exactly by techne in this case? K-Parse. Rithia says, well, art has victory conditions as well. Are you going to make money on it, be recognized, or are you going to have to give it up and go back to your day job? Well, I mean, there were a lot of starving artists that became famous after they died, and we decided they were good artists later. But yes, that's true too. If you think art is valuable, like according to critics, then yes, you need critical acclaim. So yeah. Okay, technical skill, yes. But again, you could be a technically great painter, but not really a very good artist. Like you could be good at like, copying stuff. Like a forger could be technically great, that's fair, but not a very good artist in themselves because they can't do anything creative on their own. So yeah. Oh, who was about the artist's victories conditions to have none? And motel art, yeah. Versus strategy like a predefined set of moves in a closed game with a victory condition. Yeah, I mean, you're not playing tic-tac-toe in art. That's fair. So you're thinking very game theory, yeah. Well, there's definitely games that are more open-ended that still have rules. So, like, say you're in a rock, paper, scissors competition, and the idea is to psych out your opponent. There's all these, like, unwritten rules and strategy. Yeah, D&D. So things that have massive levels of strategy, but it's not, like, such a closed system. Game of life, yeah. So you can definitely get away from like the rigid rules when defining things, but it still may have some rules, but like when does it become art? When does it become something else? Like a sport. All right, whatevers. Let's see what let's get back to what Malone has to say here though. Let's see. Was it Malone? Now I'm forgetting. Yeah, Malone. How are genres invented on this view? When Carl's inventing chillwave, he articulated rules for regarding a work as a work of that genre. So chillwave is dominated by thick, chill synths, while the conceptual core is still trying to use real instruments sound like it was recorded in nature. Chillwave is supposed to sound like something that was playing in the background of an old VHS cassette that you found in your attic from the late 80s, early 90s. Chocolate says, is the artist trying to make good art or just make art? I mean, I hope they're trying to make something worthwhile. I mean, there's a difference, of course, between good art and art. Sometimes you just want to get something done, and done is better than like good. Like if you can start ranking it among good and bad, that means there's already things that you can compare to. If you're trying to make something new, then it may not be good. It may just be different. And so you have to be careful because making something different might be worthwhile depending on what you're doing. Lafayette says, but I can see the relationship of how these things work as practice and how the art as a practice. Yeah, because there's definitely methods to art. Like, you just have to have skill sometimes. You wish Diogenes had painted some stuff? Yeah. Well, he painted his body. Like, basically, Diogenes' work was his own body. So it's like, he's more like a bodybuilder in that sense. May have piss and shit and blood. Meaningful as fuck. No, I mean, there's a nice quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger. He says, look, one of the reasons he was talking about he liked bodybuilding is that like he's being drug tested and stuff. He says there's no way to fake it. Like if you have like a really great physique, that means you had to put the work in, and people know what it is to like work out. It's not easy. And so the fact that you're able to do it better while within the constraints of like not taking drugs, that means that you are making something difficult out of yourself. Like you're doing something hard and worthwhile for your own body. So it's like, it is meaningful and it's something that everyone can recognize. Yeah, exactly, Latvian. It's you. Elon Musk is not Arnold. So, yeah. Okay, so with his article, Carl's made himself neon Indian and washed out office holders in that practice. Once there are rules which determine the legitimacy of regarding work as a work of that genre, then we can begin making moves in that practice. Importantly, it could be that these rules are articulated by artists and that that practice is primarily perpetuated by those artists insofar as they produce works of that kind, but the rules could also be developed by fan communities or critics, and the practice can be instantiated when they begin regarding works as moves in that practice. Okay, so now it's like someone has to define a genre as a certain system. So we're defining it like a game system here. Okay, but like, can any old person do this? Like, just because you define officers, like, does that make it a game that people want to play? I can invent a game, but like, does that actually make it a worthwhile game? I don't know. Its definition will come about as it's necessary. Yeah, in the context. I mean, if people like it, it will seem necessary, but a lot of things only look like that in hindsight, you know? It's like, well, was this the right way of viewing the world? In hindsight, we might say yes. At the time, people might be just, spitballing. But like, yeah, there is something that like the community has to appreciate what counts. And I think this can be manufactured at times too. People, they'll have like manufactured sort of like genres to like, I think pop music is like this. People are manufacturing different ideas of what counts as good in like the pop music industry. Like music executives are trying to do this. Frank says, yes, a person can invent such a game and it is valid in a way parallel to a person inventing a definition for word. Is fine itself. It has validity when others accept it. Yeah. And that worries me here because I feel like it's, again, you're allowing it to be the explosion as many different genres as you want. It just takes a little bit more effort. You just don't make a random category. You have to like make a game out of it. But so it's a category with extra steps. Yeah. Skibbity. Those poor children. Likewise, whether fans regard your work as a work of that genre does not depend on your intentions as an artist or whether you conceive of yourself as producing works as part of an artistic tradition. It may be that specific genres think these considerations matter, as is their right, but there is no reason why the genres as practices account is pre-committed to privileging the intentions of artists when it comes to inventing new genres or in populating those genres with works. Chocolate says, note there is some back and forth here with Ebert, the movie critic, about whether video games are art. He comes down as not, but says there are a lot of similarities. Yeah, but exactly. Ebert was wrong about that. Yeah. I mean, the idea that video games aren't art is like, that's just really, really, I feel like an old view when maybe video games weren't as good or just being elitist on movies and stuff. Does the genre of no genre contain itself? Very Zen, K-Pars. I don't know. I'd have to be a better Zen master. Maybe then I would know. Okay. Malone says, in this way, genres are historical individuals, such as that they are historically contingent, but Robinson Crusoe-like artists can still make works of a genre, so long as the rules of that practice regarding doing so are as a legitimate move. Artists with awareness of a genre can still make works of that genre on accident, according to this model as well. New genres can be invented by artists like they are in the genres as traditions account and under hard intentionalism, but they can also be invented by fans without the awareness of the artist. This allows the genre as practices account to avoid the problem of genre invention. Way too dank, yes. I mean, even in the 1990s, there were video game genres. Yeah, I mean, even in the, my dad had a fucking Atari. I had an Atari growing up. I didn't have a Nintendo for a while. We had an Atari, and it was cool, and those were fun. And it's like, well, yeah, is it just dumb fun? Maybe, but like the idea that you're interacting with like these colors on the screen, it's like that counts as, like, if you were going to count sports as a kind of art, which I do, then I don't see how video games wouldn't be related to that. So yeah. Almost choked on that one, but whatever. Okay. Likewise, we can form practices of curation according to clusters of features, internal, external, or both, functional, or a tradition of reference. For instance, a community might come together around their common interest in curating a playlist of films which function to make them feel dread, of songs that prominently feature a tuba, or of paintings that occur within a tradition of artistic production. This is to say that practices can be functional, featural, or traditional. The rules for regarding a work as a work of that genre might consider external features like an artist's ethos, their intentions in producing the work, or biographical facts about where and when the work was produced. It is up to the community to determine the project of their practice. So long as including a work in the genre is seen as a legitimate move by that practice, then it is a work of that genre. Yeah, so again, the drip paintings by Pollock, the painting community says this was a legitimate move as far as painters go, even if it was, not everyone liked it, so that makes it count. But I mean, again, this is sort of like self-validating. But that's fair. I mean, it's like, this is what it is. The genres are sort of self-selecting groups of people. That's what it sounds like here. People who self-select off into different groups, then that's what becomes genres. So self-selecting groups where they have a structure to the group. You're not overly perturbed by what the author is saying. Yeah, I don't hate this author. Like, they seem alright. K-Par says, if genre as practice can be any of the three, then it has all the three shortcomings. Well, what the strategy is here is that, like, when they say, oh, well, this one couldn't handle, like, the invention of new genres, it could because it relied on the other theory. Now, I don't think that's the case. I don't think it has all the three shortcomings. It doesn't. That's what they're doing right now, is they're going through and showing how it doesn't have the shortcomings of all the other ones. I mean, it's not strictly the same as the other three. It's saying you can define them as sort of parts of this one. So it's like, yeah. Does the other's usefulness pack over the other issues? Well, let's see how well it does it. Like, of course, it's the author's toy, like, it's their favorite example. So they're going to make it look like it does. They're going to make it look like it fixes the problems. Will it? I don't know, but, like, they're going to try. That's what they're going to be doing here. So, yeah, exactly, Lavian. Yeah, so this means that insofar as we're moved to accept the other theories in virtue of their describing a particular genre well, we can have all those accounts on a practice-based view. So, like, yeah, you're getting all the good parts and getting none of the bad parts. You should believe me. This kind of pluralism also gives us the ability to capture the range of practices we find in micro-genres like chillwave. Now, like, I want to say, did this solve explosion? I don't think this solves explosion. It's just that they're saying, well, people have to like it. And that's really weak, This has at least two consequences of import. First, the rules of a genre can change over time, just as the rules of baseball have changed over time, but the identity of the game persists. What is demanded of a work in order to count it as a member of a genre might change over time. For instance, it might be that country music started out as a functional practice according to which works function to reconnect an increasingly urban American population to their rural roots. Yet, this does not fix the genre so permanently that being a work of country music isn't now simply a matter of satisfying a set of musical features. Likewise, a features-driven curation practice can change over time by requiring more or less or different features. Latvian Jesus says, I'm still not sold on explosion being an issue. I'd imagine we are always exploding. Yeah, we're always inventing new stuff. The problem is you don't want it to be so easy to, like, just recategorize things as genres that the word itself becomes meaningless. But, like, yeah. It's like, well, if everything counts as a genre, then nothing does. But, yeah, I mean, if everything counts as a game, because game theory treats everything as a game, then what exactly do you mean by game? And that's what I'm worried about here. Is this just a more abstract metaphysics than they really are going for, and you're not really learning anything about genre, you're just learning that the word game can be applied to all things, including aesthetics. Okay. In this way, the genres as practices account accommodates genre drift. Second, just as the rules of baseball can't be changed to be by presidential fiat, what a genre is and what rules count towards genre membership is a matter of negotiation between members of that community. The genres as practices view does not privilege artists as such, but it does privilege the community that makes up that genre, including members who hold offices as artists in it. The nature of genres and the genre membership of works aren't decided by metaphysical facts about features or about the private intentions of the artist. They are decisions made by communities engaged in that practice. Insofar as theories ignore this social nature of genre, they run the risk of engaging in a kind of philosophical busybodying. Yeah, so again, they're at least they appreciate the social here. That it's not just the artist, it's the art enjoyers that matter in like art communities. Well, there's my answer. It's not a metaphysical argument. Yeah, I mean, again, it's not one kind of metaphysical. It may be something else. Like I said, if game applies to everything, then you're not actually saying anything by calling something a game. Okay. If genres are fixed merely by being sets of features or functional kinds, then we could have a situation in which philosophers insist to the community of, say, metal fans who are happily regarding a work as a work of metal, that work is actually not metal on account of some metaphysical facts about it. It is not philosophers or metaphysical facts that ultimately decide what metal is. The metal community decides. Community members decide whether a work or artist is of a particular genre, though practices they establish for accounting officers, players, and moves, they don't discover whether they are. Yeah, so it's like it's a decision that counts in sort of the community-based stuff. It's fair. But it's like, yeah. What good are genres anyways? Well, again, the community gets to decide what counts as the good stuff. Like, what's a good genre? Like, a good example of something. And so it's like, criticism that, just limit creativity. Well, no. We have a rank. We here on Philosophy Roulette decide what counts as good philosophy. And one function of us deciding what counts as good philosophy is that we tell people what counts as good philosophy, because we're going to rank this in a minute when we get to the conclusion. And that way other people might get to read good philosophy as opposed to bad philosophy. And so we could, say what counts as a good aesthetics paper. And that would be helpful to people who are interested in the area of aesthetics. Okay. This is not to say that the community can't be wrong. For instance, we might think that the country music community was wrong in saying that Lil Nas X Old Town Road isn't country. However, whether they are wrong or not will depend on reasons that the community has picked out as relevant. On a practice-based model, telling the community that they are wrong about whether an artist is or work is of that genre is either 1, requires a strong argument rooted in that community practices, or 2, appears equivalent to breaking up a perfectly content baseball game in order to argue that a particular home run is in fact not a home run on account of some fact independent of the game, the players, and the rules, that is, amounts to busybodying. The community decides what is required for a work to be a work of that game, but they do so according to the rules that they must ultimately change or be answerable to. Lil Nas X, in a philosophy paper, feels strongman. See, you have to give this person credit. They are talking about some pretty abstract stuff, and then they still get to have fun things like talking about Lil Nas X Old Town Road and the semi-controversy about it. Like, did it count as country music? I mean, I don't care about the controversy, but like people did care about that. And like, should it have counted for like country music awards? And like people care about that sort of thing. So it's like you have to give the artist credit for being, the author Malone here, credit for being able to pull these sorts of different things together. K-Par says might be pedantic, but that seems more like a preference than an assessment of objective quality, which you're fine with. What is a preference? Whether you count something as country music? Because the author would be strongly against that. They are saying, look, the community counts certain things as good. Okay. Yeah, well, whatever you want to call it then. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'm not saying Philosophy Roulette rankings are objective. It's just, our first impressions of this paper. It is just, what did we think of it at the time? Okay, conclusion. Is this just the last page? Okay, last page. Hooray! I'm not going to be at 3 fucking hours again and lose my mind, because I do start losing my mind after 3 hours. Not that I haven't lost already, but it gets bad after 3 hours. Beyond better handling the problems associated with genre invention and categories of art than the existing accounts, the genres as practices model has other advantages. For one, it connects questions of genre to the existing literature on both practices and aesthetic practices, thereby providing us with a more unified picture. More importantly, however, it orients our thinking towards tractable problems and provides a framework for arriving at answers. For example, we might wonder why punk and metal assign positive value to screaming in ways that other genres don't. After all, we don't typically enjoy listening to screaming in our everyday lives. Accordingly, a standard answer might be investigate the aesthetic value of screaming as such. However, this project seems doomed to fail because it is not properly sensitive to the role that screaming plays in the various subgenres of punk and metal. For instance, gang vocal yelling common to hardcore serves as a form of community building where artists and audiences unite in an accessible form of group singing. Meanwhile, metal screaming is accessible for the audience to participate in, but allows artists to demonstrate virtuosity in controlling vocal timbre and dynamics the way that metal guitar playing often involves demonstrations of virtuosity, at least in contrast to punk. Latvian says, the rules of goodness on philosophers' roulette are teased out as we need to qualify the paper we read. Its participation in the genre, good or bad philosophy, will dissipate as fast as it appears once we read a different kind of paper in different circumstances. Yes, I mean, and that is part of what's going on here, is that there are different kinds of philosophy. Like, we're doing logic, it may be very different from sort of like applied ethics, and so it's like it's going to be very, very different. Absolutely. But we can still evaluate arguments, we can still evaluate people's ideas about what they're saying. Did they say anything that we found interesting? And so it's like, well, I've put a lot of time and effort into making my rankings, so it's like, yes, but like there is it's fun to rank things too, yes, but like that is part of it. It's like, yeah, things are going to be different, and people are going to disagree, but criticism aside, we can do it anyway. So yeah. Finally, screaming and screamo music might involve the expression of primal emotions like pain and anger, such that the audience identifies with the screaming frontman or woman nowadays, or they, them, for whatever, and experiences their catharsis as their own. Without understanding that genres are practices in which screaming performs different functions, any simple answer is equivalent to an attempt to explain the value of touchdowns at a higher level of explanation than the rules of football. Yeah, I mean, and we've just lost all of our European audience because who knows what a touchdown is. The moral of the story is that providing an account of what makes a given phenomenon aesthetically valuable might require being sensitive to the role that feature plays within a genre community's aesthetic practice. By the same token, thinking of genres in terms of communities of aesthetic practice can also help us understand why the Grand Ole Opry plays an outsized role in determining what is or isn't country music, because it inhabits a particularly powerful office in that practice, or why some genres seem to aim at eliciting a particular emotional or phenomenal response in their audience, and others simply coalesce around a cluster of internal features. The answer is that these differences reflect differences in the practice of those communities. Hooray, done. Okay. I didn't hate this. Didn't hate this at all. And now is the time to rank things. And this is our emote review. And you do have to spell things and capitalize correctly. So you can copy and paste from in chat. But like, if this was fun and made your brain dance, have fun ideas, you give it a brain dance. If it talked about existential artistic drama, which it kind of did here, Nog Scream, Ouroboros for deep ancient ideas, Nog Knife for slicing and dicing arguments. I mean, worthy of your size? Maybe not. Nog navel gazing only for academics. Nog turd, all style, no substance, still poop underneath. And nog rapes for big claims that shrivel up. So you can also use the global vote yay, the global vote nay, and my vote meh. And anything in the green will sort of boost the overall score, just so you know, in the end. And anything red will push the score down, and the vote meh kind of makes everything go towards the middle. So just to give you an idea of like how the underlying ranking works. Now, this paper, we were kind of criticizing it for being very sort of high level, and that's fair. It was very high level a lot of the times, just talking about the ideas, not making like getting nitty gritty. I think Rethius was saying this. Like it's just sort of like going over a few sort of big ideas. And it did do that, and then it eventually got to their idea, and then it, got into a bit more of what they liked about it. So I mean, this is not like, we're not in the weeds here, but then again, this was more fun. Like, it was kind of a fun article, get to talk about stuff. So like, yeah, I'm gonna be with chat. I'm gonna give it a brain dance, and I'm gonna give it a Ouroboros, Nog Scream. Yeah. What was the big claim here? It did get a little bit, it stimulated some decent discussion, sure. I'd give it a vote yay, but I'm also going to give it a little bit of a Nog Grapes too. Like, they kind of, well, is it a grapes or a turd? They kind of just sort of hand waved at, I'm going to give it a Nog Turd also. Because it was a good paper, but like when it came to their stuff, they just sort of like, it's kind of funny. Takeaway is that Rawls cooked. Yeah, exactly. They just kind of hand waved like, okay, we're going to do Rawls. That's what we're going to do right here. So like, this is really a good paper, in my opinion. Like, of course you get yours. It wasn't rigorous. Yeah, that's why I gave it the turd also, even though like it's going to have a good score also, but like, it's just kind of like, it was high level, and that's fine. Like, it was fun. It did good. It wasn't like a perfect paper. Like, this isn't going to make this person's career, I don't think, but like, it was a very nice paper. So it's like, yeah, you may have missed the first few, so it might be an uninformed voter. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. So you didn't like it so much. That's okay. Like, if you are in chat now, you are allowed to vote. I'm not gatekeeping on chat. Everyone can participate. I mean, if you want to, go ahead. The first few pages weren't much to miss. Yeah, it was just setting up the problem. And so if you heard the rest of it, it's fine. But yeah. And oh yeah, if there's any lurkers, I don't check the who's in chat. So it's like, feel free to not rate either. I'm not going to be angry with you because I don't know you're here or not. Section 5 was on the meat and potatoes. Yeah. So like, exactly. Once they got to their stuff, I mean, that's just what they wanted to say. So it was all set up just to get there. And then like, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. So, 60 seconds left. If anyone else wants to get your rankings in, now's the time. And then we'll get out of here. Getting in under the 3-hour limit. Yeah. So we've had actually some halfway decent papers, last few times. Like someone was asking, are there good philosophy papers? Yeah, this is one of the better ones. We've had some terrible fucking philosophy papers, and it's like, yeah, you get confused when they say the community could be wrong, way too dank. Well, the community can revolt against their own standards. And the question then is, why did they revolt against their own standards? Were they being racist and not like black people or gay black people, like in the case of Lil Nas X? And they were like, oh no, we can't have this black guy come into country music and make a country song. And so was it literally just racism? And that's a bad reason to reject your standards, your artistic standards, just because it's a black guy making music. But like, yeah, I mean, that you like a critic could criticize the community for being hypocrites, basically. Well, everything can be wrong at any given time, but the point is that you can specifically criticize them for being hypocritical racists. If you can criticize them for being hypocritical racists, then like, yes, you actually have a reason for criticizing that community then. Yeah, one could be ready to be wrong and then roll with it. Yeah, but again, it depends in what way were you wrong.